Uh, so Daniel Torres, you got a great name, Daniel. All right. We did this interview months ago,
Yep.
and I never hit record. All right, and I apologize, but I learned a lot about you from that hour-long conversation. But now Guru Nation gets to learn a lot about you. And you currently work for Mass General. You're a CRA Academy graduate. You've got so much ahead of you in this industry. Thank you for wearing the Yuma Clinical Trials shirt.
Of
You've
course, man,
done you've
always.
done work for us in the past, and it's always helpful to have like a little bit of Creo help. Maybe let's
Hmm.
start with that first.
Yeah,
Let's
sure.
make this a little bit different than the last interview. What are your thoughts on eSource, eReg? What are your thoughts on my site, Yuma Clinical Trials? Compare it with Mass General. What
Yeah.
I know you don't see
Uh,
patients with us here, but um,
mhm.
try to like compare it a little bit.
Yeah. So to clarify, MGH, it's academia research, right? And Yuma Clinical Trials, of course, it's research, clinical research, human trials with IPs. So that on its own, it's completely different than academia. Uh, I love how versatile Yuma has been getting. All the different tasks that I've been handling there with of course, Katie and Desiree and Sam. Oof, it's so much more enjoyable for me as a person, like to handle so many different tasks, which again is different from academia. Academia is more structured, more slower paced. It's good, of course, as a job, as an industry. They do great work in cancer research, and of course, the one I'm doing now, it's for opioid use disorder, and
Ah,
it's quite
okay.
interesting study. Like, there's a lot to learn from that.
I think we might get that study.
Oh,
Um,
okay, perfect.
did that study start? Like, is that brand new?
For us, yes, but
Yeah,
it's mhm,
I think we're gonna be at add-on site too, and it was supposed to start sometime in. I actually have to follow up with them, but maybe they forgot about us. But I have to. That actually reminds me,
right.
because they were looking at us. If it's the same one, I'm not sure, and we don't need
Hmm.
to mention the sponsor. Actually, even
Yeah,
if I
of
wanted
course.
to, I can't think of, or can't remember it. But interesting. Okay, so there still might be some overlap, even between academia and see with academia, like sometimes those key opinion leaders, the PIs,
Hmm.
they're also used for industry sponsored trials too. And the matter of fact, the industry, like the sponsors, especially the smaller biotechs, they love it for their investors when they could send a press release that say, "Hey, Doctor So and So from MGH is one of our
Hmm.
investigator." Like
Yeah,
it, investors they don't know anything about our industry, so they just see big names and press release, and they're like, "Oh," they get excited. They invest more.
yeah,
When in
exactly.
reality, we know, like, hey, there's definitely a place for academia, but the majority of like the bang for buck, the efficiency comes from the smaller sites, I think. And I
Hmm.
just interviewed three triplet. Guess this, Daniel. I interviewed three triplet OBGYNs. They're identical triplets, all OBGYNs in Miami, doing a
Uh-huh.
private clinic, and they do research. It was amazing. I was
Wow.
so confused
What
in
are
the interview. I didn't know who to ask what. They just you ask question and whoever wants to answer.
yeah,
It
what are
was
the chances of that happening?
unreal. Never did
Wow.
that before. But yeah, like there is a place for academia. People always think that I don't like academia or something. It's like this is why I wanted you on because you work for both and they
Yep.
both have pros and cons, right? And I know
Hmm.
Sam, who works for Dana Faber, who's been on podcasts before, and she's from the CRC Academy.
Hmm.
She likes. There's people that like those kind of structure. There's people that like the more chaotic structure, and then there's people that want to try both. And it
Yep.
seems like you're one of those, that just kind of wants to try a little bit of everything. But with MGH, there's a lot of benefits of working for a company like this, right?
Oh yes, I mean for the perks alone and the benefits, it's excellent. Uh, MGH is right now ranked eighth on top hospitals around the US.
Unrivaled.
They've always been around there, like the top one, five, eight, tens, but they never fall under that. So yeah, they're always high ranked.
What do you think of their well, what do you think of our eSource, Yuma clinical trials? Like you've actually programmed
Hmm.
Source, Katie. We kind of taught Katie based on Samantha and you. Like she knows how to like reprogram. She knows how to modify. So we just had an amendment where the
Oh, okay.
sponsor asked us to not do something anymore. So she knew how to take it off. Um,
Hmm.
so like simple things like that. But like you create the whole thing from scratch. So what do you think of, like, systems like that? Do you enjoy doing that kind of stuff, and do you get to do stuff like that with, MGH?
Um, I come from a family of full computer engineers, so I've grown up with coding. So that's when I saw the coding that you had to create in order to build the EDC. It was like, oh, this is second nature to me. Because if you ever were back in the 90s creating your own website with HTML, use uh, fuchsia or hot pink websites with all your green fonts. That I did that. So once I looked at the DDC, it's like, oh, okay, this is very similar. Codes, what they do, and just don't forget the parentheses. And that's how you build a website. Room for improvement, yes, of course, but mainly on the service, the hardcore website. Like sometimes you have to really be specific of where you click in order to activate a window and things like that. But besides that, the system works. Right now, for instance, I don't do that at MGH. I only do that for Yuma. Um, but yeah, it was a very enjoyable experience for me. Um,
We have another study
I
starting soon too, so, we'll
mhm,
be
yeah,
asking you for help
yeah, yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah,
So take us back, because in the last interview where I never recorded it, you have a really you have a really interesting story of how you came to the States. You know,
mhm,
there's a large segment of my audience, my viewers and listeners that are in similar situation or are always asking either for themselves or someone else how you can make that transition. In your case, it was Spain, right? You came from Spain.
mhm, yeah.
Can you kind of walk
So
us through this? Like, how did it work?
mhm. I was doing a master's in Spain. It's called R&D and I. I stands for innovation of new medicines. So research, development, and innovation of new medicines, right? After that, I just started working inside Spain for about 5, 6 years before the pandemic hit. Um, but back then, I met who is right now my wife, Sam, and we were in the process of the fiancé visa. So that's actually how I got into the United States. We were actually apart for a year because of the pandemic. We weren't allowed. I wasn't allowed to go to the U.S. and she wasn't allowed to go back into Spain. So we had to do all that long distance. Um, but for instance, that was quote unquote the easier way, to have a fiance who is American and for you to be able to migrate. But let's say you're not in that position. For instance, I have a friend at John Hopkins who is doing a PhD, and he doesn't have a fiance. He doesn't have a sponsor, an American sponsor. His options are either search a job that will sponsor him, an industry like a private company or a hospital or clinic, or get married. Those are I mean, realistically speaking, those are his two options.
So two options:
So,
find a company that will sponsor you. From your
which there
experiences,
are,
there are.
it's harder to find, of course, but there are. I actually interviewed a couple of weeks ago with one that was willing to sponsor me, but since I don't need it,
You don't need it, yeah.
there's exactly. I said no, I don't need sponsorship. But believe it or not, there are companies who are willing to sponsor people with no green cards or
Are they typically
the
the
proper.
bigger companies, like the
No,
academics, or who
no.
is it?
I would suggest to find small to mid companies,
Small.
probably startups, biotechs, and if you're not into clinical research, like you can find still non-clinical research who deal with biotechs.
I see.
Hmm.
Especially if you have like those coding skills and computer skill,
Hmm.
or just like
Yeah.
anything technical. I mean, PhD. Certainly, there's a biotech or a startup or a genomics company
Hmm.
looking for talent.
Yeah, because they're in very aggressive mindset. They want to grow quickly, so they would be more willing to sponsor someone if they know, okay, he or she can bring a lot into the table.
I see.
Let's give them that option.
But you had Samantha, your fiance, so you didn't need to worry about that. And by the way, thank you for introducing Samantha to my world. And she then took the CRC Academy after you took CRA
Hmm.
Academy, and she's now working
Yeah,
in the industry. So you guys are,
yeah.
we got to do an interview with you guys together, like the happy couple working in
she
clinical research.
she's promoting not only Yuma or the course, but she's promoting clinical research like she owned it to
Yeah.
everyone. It's like, hey, what you doing? You want to go into clinical research? Huh?
Samantha's
Like,
awesome. She's like the ambassador to research,
yeah,
and yeah, she's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
It's always nice, and she actually played a huge role in you as well. But it started with her in
Mm,
helping me start Yuma Clinical Trial and not losing
yeah.
my mind. Yeah, like she
Yeah, I
in
bet.
those early days, really like saved my sanity for for a few months. So thank you, Samantha. Anything you ever need, I got you, Samantha. And you too, Daniel, because you came in right after. Because then she got hired, and she's like, "Hey, you know what? Like, I know you still need help, but Daniel." And so then we picked up. So now you guys are like the power couple, kind of both
Yeah,
collaborating on helping us with occasional projects here and there on the side,
yeah.
which
We
is
should
good.
start an Instagram account like
You
that.
actually
The
should. You know, her
CRA
being
power
a
couple.
background in travel, I
Yeah,
think there is a lot that she can bring from travel
I mean,
industry to
for
Instagram.
anyone new that don't know Samantha, she was not at all familiar with clinical research. She came from tourism, and she made the switch right after the pandemic hit. So
Thanks
it
to
is
you.
possible to
Thanks to you.
transition. I kind of lightly pushed a little, but we're really glad that she did
Because
the
how
switch.
did stop? So you met Samantha already, so you were already engaged, and then somehow you found us, the CRA Academy, right? How did this happen? Like the timeline. I'm confused a little as
Like
well.
I I think I started following you around 2016 or 2015. You know, like I was
Wow.
watching your videos, yeah, randomly here and there. I was kind of interested, but then I got really into it after I left my previous company, like the one I ran for over 5 6 years, and then I decided to go full ahead with the course. So that's how I found the CRA Academy. And yeah, fast forward, I also mentioned to Samantha that they had a CRC Academy because if she had no biology background or science background, that could be a really a good step into what you can get ahead. You know?
Wow. And Samantha, I mean, Monica would confirm, but the CRC academies since 2020 exists since 2019 really, so it's like a little bit younger than CRA. CRA we've been since
Hmm.
2016, but Samantha is like in the CRC Academy Hall of Fame. Like she's one of the top 5 students we've ever had, and I think Monica would say the same. From the CRC Academy. For the CRA Academy, we don't really have a Hall of Fame. I think everyone's more or less good because the
Okay.
differentiator is like, here's the kind of the differentiator is like if you have a healthcare background, especially RN or
Hmm.
just any kind of work in healthcare, we kind of recommend CRA. And then if you don't,
Hmm.
we recommend CRC. But then even if you do, we recommend CRC. So CRC actually has more students. But yeah, Samantha's memorable because she's zero background, but managed to
Yep.
be like one of the a Hall of Famer from our CRC Academy. So that's pretty amazing, and it's really cool that you guys work in the industry together. But what you said you left your company and went full steam into research. What was that company?
Mhm.
What did you do there?
Oh, I was in the foods and beverages company. We actually sold CBD products.
Love it, love it.
Yep. Back in, we started in 2015, August 2015.
In Spain?
Yeah. Yeah, in Spain. And right before the world knew about the pandemic, we sold the company. So it was like if we were 3 to 4 days delayed, that deal would not have gone through.
Wow, so a
Yep,
matter of
yep.
days. And you were what was your position? Like, I'm assuming something high up in the company or
I was COO slash scientific advisor.
wow. Okay. So COO, so the new company that came in and took over, they acquired.
Hmm. Yep.
They didn't want
Yep.
to keep you there, or they had their own
Yes,
COO,
they did.
or okay.
No, they did want me to keep there, but I refused. I
You
wanted to. First
refu-
of all, I hadn't had a break in over 5 years. No weekends, no holidays, nothing. It was a very young company, and we built it up day after day, hour after hour. So I said, you know what? I need a sabbatical, at least 6 months of doing nothing. But those
Wow.
6 months became a year of pandemic, right?
I mean, feel free, and so maybe we'll go on a little tangent, but at that time, probably right before COVID,
Hmm.
2018 and really 2019, I was nerding out over CBD. I bought a book this thick and I was reading, I remember reading on a plane. I was convinced that was going to be the next industry that I
Hmm.
bring to research, and I had a group of partners and everything. Like one of the guys was from Entrepreneur Magazine. Like he was the
Oh,
founder.
okay.
His dad was the
Hmm.
founder, so he's the CEO now of Entrepreneur Magazine. So he was going to do the marketing. Then we had operationals guy. I
Mm,
was going to do the research side, and the
right.
deal fell through not because of COVID. It fell through because
Mm.
no one was able to focus. Everyone had like their own business already, and no one could be the glue to kind of put it. But I was studying the
Right.
hell out of CBD, man. For people who followed me back then, you would have seen my Instagram stories was all about CBD research. We need more
Yeah,
research into
that
this.
was the
Wow.
greatest new thing back there.
So you must be like an expert on that stuff. Are you like at the end of the day, do you see a lot of promise in the CBD? Like, why are they not doing more research?
Honestly, like back then at least, it was all regulation and law. Like that was the big bottleneck. But to be honest, after the deal went through, after I left that company, I hadn't followed at all. I was ready to just dwell into research.
Do you think you would ever come back full circle? Like if the CBD does get busy in research now? Because I still think it's possible. I just think COVID delayed it because of mRNA and
Probably.
monoclonal antibodies. All this stuff's going to
Hmm.
take a front seat. But a CBD is still there and it still has a
Yeah.
huge growing support.
Yeah, we actually interviewed one of the top researchers in Madrid, Manuel Guzman, and his research on cannabinoids alone, he studied, I think, over 15, 20 years only on cannabinoids and how they could potentially be the next big thing for cancer research. And yeah, the promise is there. Based on his research alone, I would say, yeah, it could be. And I think you're right. COVID just delayed it, unfortunately.
The funding
But
went to mRNA technology and
yes.
monoclonal antibodies, which was something happening before any
Hmm.
monoclonal antibodies, this tidal wave that can't be stopped. But
Hmm.
I think CBD is somewhere in the top 10 of things
Yeah.
that are exciting growth areas in this space.
I've also seen a lot of tRNA research just
Ah,
popping its head out. Yeah. So
so
those two, mRNA and tRNA.
interesting. What's the tRNA?
Hmm. Transfer. Sorry, transfer, translation.
Okay, okay. I,
Mm.
man, yeah, that's another topic. I'm working on some projects, but getting into the science. But tRNA is the first I've heard of this actually. Uh, I gotta look
Yeah,
into
look
that
it up.
more.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So okay, so then you decided to go full steam ahead in clinical research.
Correct.
Um, why? Why? Coming from CBD, it sounds so cool, but like you said, it's a
Yeah.
lot of work. Like, but you don't seem like you avoid work. So what was the reason for? You just wanted
Uh,
different?
no, I actually discovered clinical research back in 2012, 20, yeah, I would say 2012. Um, I have worked in wet labs so many years already, and I wanted something more, something different because lab work is very crucially important. But to me, doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result was not doing it for me. So I actually started as a CTA, as an intern in a clinic. So that was my real first experience in research. But shortly after that, I started the masters. I went to R&D, and well, the company basically they headhunted me. They wanted to work with me. Based, I think they actually took a look at my thesis and they found it really interesting. So I think that was the hook that got them. And research was always on the back of my head. Like after I do this, I'll go back. And 1 year became two, two became three, four, five, until right before the pandemic. But until then, I was like, okay, there's no excuse. You can literally not go out. Start reading, start learning, enroll in some courses, and that's how I enrolled in the CRA Academy. And
Awesome.
I haven't stopped ever since.
What'd you think of the CRA Academy? Like, what were your
Oh,
experiences? What were your expectations, and what were your experiences like?
the course, fantastic. I really loved it. And not just because I'm talking to you and wearing the t-shirt, but yeah, I research also courses in Spain and like Spanish and English. And yours was the more structured, first of all. And I felt other offers didn't really add the value that I immediately saw. Okay, this is what I'm paying for, and this is what I'm getting through the website, like your website. Um, I also got a hand of the book, the one you got right there,
Thank you,
and that
thank you.
sealed the deal for me. Like I started reading that one first, and then I enrolled almost immediately after I finished it. But yeah, like 10 out of 10 for me. I would highly recommend it. And for people, again, who are not familiar with research, CRC is a very good way. Ask Sam. She's a living embodiment of what you can achieve from knowing absolutely nothing about research and now working for one of the best hospitals in cancer research
It's
in the
truly
US.
truly amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I yeah, and I thought you were gonna say one of the best research company, Yuma Clinical Trial, but
Well, and
we
of
can't
course,
compete
you
with
make a
Harvard. No, that's amazing. That's amazing
oh,
story,
we're
Daniel.
getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. I appreciate the shirt. So, um, I think one of the other things that people don't realize is the many different jobs and
Mm,
responsibility. First of all, like if you segment the stakeholders into sponsors, CRO sites, right? I mean, even most people don't even understand that, but if you can sub-segment all those too, and especially when you throw in vendors like tech vendors, like Creo is one, right, for our e-source, or like patient recruitment vendors, or IRBs, or lab vendors. I mean, the list goes on and on. Like, and I'm trying to feature more of these individuals on my show. I'm gonna have somebody from the vendor that actually makes the investigational product, because it's not
mm,
like, let's say Pfizer does a study. Well, they can make like a molecule to test, but
mhm.
they don't make it like at scale for all the sites to use. They
Right.
outsource that.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
that's like another vendor people don't think
Hmm.
about. Actually, I talked to her yesterday. We're gonna have her on the show. It's called something like CMO or CDO. I wrote it down. People are gonna have to stay tuned for that. But I've never heard of it. I've been doing this 17 years. And I'm like, what is this acronym? And she told me, and this is basically what it stands for. So imagine
Mm,
how many, like,
wow.
I've been doing this 17 years. I haven't heard of it. Imagine
Yep.
somebody's brand new. How
Yeah. Your
close their
brain
eyes.
literally expands
It's
with the knowledge.
unreal. And
Yeah.
you now CRC two. So what was your after
Mhm.
the CRA Academy internship? What was your first role besides Yuma Clinical Trials?
Mhm.
Your first role in the industry outside of our internship and Yuma Clinical Trials. Like, what was your first role?
So my literally my first experience back in 2012 as a CTA. That was the very first. Then during the masters, I was a CRC for their clinic. It's in Pamplona. It's to Clínica Universidad de Pamplona. That was my second real work experience. I was hired, right? And then my third and now the current, well, the third one would be Yuma. And my fourth one right now, it's MGH. It's Massachusetts General Hospital as a CRC2.
CRC two. And what
So that's the timeline.
walk us through what a CRC two does at an
Hmm.
organization like this. 'Cause a lot of people watching, they don't know. Maybe they work at small sites, or maybe they don't work at any sites and they want to decide what kind of
Hmm.
company they want to work. So what is a CRC? How is it different from CRC one? What are the other roles there? And then what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Hmm. Well, based on my experience, the difference between one and two is basically the years of experience and the amount of work, I would say, that you have to deal with. Because CRCs two, sorry, one, at least at MGH, I would say they handle maybe two studies at a time, usually one, but maybe two. And now, as a CRC2, I'm not only handling four studies, I'm also training other CRCs, right? So all the work that I've been doing, I have to teach them how to deal with IRB submissions, how to deal with the protocol, how to even contact the PIs, because they might not be available whenever we need them to sign paperwork. And that's a very big thing. But yeah, my basically responsibilities are dealing with the protocols, the IRB submissions, and handling the informed consent. I have to talk to the patients, let them know what the study is about, and if they're willing or not to participate in. That's
Wow.
like at the core. That's my responsibilities.
So basically, when a patient comes in, like you're doing the consenting with them and maybe the PI on the day of
Hmm.
screening?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I'll ask you a little bit about that because I actually did that today for a new study we have. We have a that new atopic derm study that you made the source for. So I actually did I have my own little strategies for how I explain the consent form, but I wanted to get your take on that. But
Sure.
so you work from the office then? You go in every day or is it remote?
Whenever we have to recruit, I go to the hospital. I mean, I have my physical office where I work, and the hospital is a few blocks away. The other days, I work remote from home because I have to just deal with paperwork and amendments.
I see. Do you have to you choose when you do both, or you need to tell somebody today I'm going to the office, or
We usually have every morning a list of patients who have been admitted. And from that list of patients, we determine, okay, for this study, which is opioid use disorder, who are the ones that, with the criteria that are eligible. From those, we contact them and see who is willing to participate or not.
I see. So it's constantly something new
Yeah,
happening because of
it's
the
mhm,
MGH big hospital. They get new admissions, and Boston's a big
yeah,
city, so you you get plenty of patients coming through.
yeah. Like one of the bottlenecks, actually, like this is a very important issue that we need to focus on. It's uh, the discharge against medical advice. So, like most of these patients, we found out that they just want to leave for X reason. Of course, they don't need to explain us why. They just want to leave, and they do. So if they started the study, they are a week or 2 weeks into it, they just leave. And we have no data to work on. So that's a very big issue that we're trying to handle right now with at least this kind of population with opioid use disorder.
Yeah, opioid use disorder is tough. My PI and I were talking about that a few weeks ago. If we ever get this study, they told us we've been selected, so I'm waiting to start the study.
Hmm.
But um, this population's unique because
Mm.
retention is very tough. It's one of those studies
Yeah,
where recruitment's kind of easy, but retention is tough.
yeah,
Um,
that's a big thing.
and then with MGH, so is I'm gathering that it's mostly inpatient studies you're doing, or are you also
Hmm.
doing outpatient,
Inpatient.
inpatient?
Mhm.
But MGH does have outpatient centers, right?
Yeah, 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 of course. Yes.
Okay, but those are different departments. If they do research there, it's
Hmm.
separate
There's
people. It's not
very
you.
um, the CRC next to me, I think she's working on some vaping studies using
Wow.
the famous one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to mention any
No,
names, but
everybody knows who it is.
yeah, and that was really interesting to look at. There's psychology, there's heart disease, there's of course all types of medical conditions that MGH works on. So
Interesting.
it's
So
yeah, it's
you're assigned to the inpatient, which are in a
mhm,
way more challenging. The consenting process must be different than for a inpatient, because it leads us back. One of your primary roles is consenting patients. For the new studies, I usually do the first few consent until my staff, Katie and Desiree, who
mhm,
through Zoom, I teach them how to do it. And basically, every study has has a Cliff Notes version of the drug, right? The IP. So once you learn at least this is the way I do it. Rather than reading every page, I mean, we can do that if the patient wants to, but I give them like a summary of the drug, everything we
mhm.
know about it in like easy to understand terms. Like this is a monoclonal antibody. This is what that means. This is the possible benefit. These are the risks. I feel like that's a little bit easier, maybe not easier, but more laid back in an outpatient setting because it's not an emergency necessarily. And with
Mhm.
inpatient, I've only done a few inpatient studies in my life. I feel like it's much more pressured, like time sensitive. Is that what you're finding too?
Yes, again, they have very different reasons why they would like to leave. Some are homeless, some have very limited income, some have family members to take care of. All these different reasons create uh, this issue that we're having to have them actually stay in the hospital for the duration of the study. Some do, yes, we do, but still, it's something that we've been cracking our skulls to really come up with a solution to to not only provide this the help that they need, but also to gather quality data.
Do you do you feel like, I mean, the way I explain how I do ICFs, I'm not trying to say if it's right or wrong. It's just my style. I'm actually interested in
Hmm.
science, so I lean towards explaining the science to the patient in terms I can understand, and then if they have further questions, we bring the PI. And I feel like you also have like the proclivity towards science. Do you kind of do the same thing?
Hmm.
Like kind of give them a general overview of like the drug mechanism of action, or do you like simplify it to the point of just kind of the way the study is and not necessarily focusing on the drug?
Yes, I try to simplify it as much as possible. Um, of course, us that have been in the industry, we always think science based, but for someone who is research naive, they might not know what a drug is, right? What a medication actually works, the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. So I always try to put it as simply as I can. Even if I put in my if I put a 5-year old and I explain it and they can explain it back to me, I know I'm good to go. But yeah, sometimes it's again this patient population uh, has its complications to work with. Again, this need to leave the hospital as soon as possible, it's the bottleneck that we're facing.
How many, on average, how many days do you consent, or how many consents do you do per day or per week?
On a good day, I would say 10 per day.
10 per day. So
Yeah,
you guys are doing like 50 a week, and that's just
but
from you.
but at least I don't do it every day,
I
right?
see. Yeah, yeah.
Because from the list that they send us every morning, not everyone is eligible, right?
I
They
see.
might have opioid use disorder, but still there are other considerations to take into. So
Wow.
yeah, on a bad day, zero, of course, but on average, I would say 5. A good day, 10, and that's only me.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm happy when we do like 3 screenings in a week,
Yeah.
at Yuma clinical trials, but I'm trying to get to like 5 a week where we do 1 every week. Um,
Hmm.
it's just me and 2 coordinators and a NP, so it's kinda hard, um, to accommodate that because remember the screening's randomized too, so then the visits add up. So right now we're doing like 5 to 7 visits on average across all studies a
Hmm.
week, which is pretty good, but I'd like to double that in a few
Hmm.
months if we
Yeah.
can. Um, that's interesting. I was always curious, and I gotta ask because you guys use local IRBs, and I'm debating changing our SOPs. Do do you guys? And I just did this today too. Do you guys have the patient initial and date every page on the informed consent,
Yes.
even if the IRB doesn't have them do it?
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah. I've always preferred it that way. I'm doing it that way.
So maybe I won't revise the SOPs. It's just one of my coordinators, and she brought up a good point. Like, why do we do this if the IRB
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mandate it? And I said, well, it's because our SOP, this is how it is. And I
Mm-hmm.
was debating changing it, but I'm also debating keeping it because it shows that we're actually going through.
Yeah, exactly.
thoroughly. If
You're looking at it.
yeah, curious. Yeah, so I think you've convinced me to leave it at least for a while. Uh, all right, interesting. So now you just do the consenting. So who takes over the screening after you're done?
Well, that would be the PI.
The PI, and then well, what about the CRC, like vitals and all that stuff? Like you don't do any of
Uh,
that?
we have nurses.
Mm. And they
Hmm
all document their own thing, and then the
Yeah,
source paper or e-source?
e-source. I go to RedCap,
E-source.
all the one we use,
I
and
see.
everything is there. Mhm.
Do you think it's very similar to Creo, or do you have a preference?
Um, they're very similar. I wouldn't say necessarily one is better than the other. At the end of the day, they capture data, so it's
Yeah.
just a matter of where it is each item. So
And
yeah,
style
and the
and
style,
that kind
colors,
of stuff. I
once you've
see.
seen one, you've basically seen them all.
You've seen them all. That's what I tell the students too. Like, hey, we only use BioClinica in our
hmm Yeah.
Theory Academy, and we're starting to give them some access to Creo. We have to make like a mock study in there for Creo. I have to talk to Monica about that, but yeah, otherwise it's basically the same. And then Viva is coming out with a free e-source for sites, which is
Okay.
something brand new that they're gonna do. So that'll be something interesting we can play with too in both the academies,
hmm
CRA and CRC Academy. So
It's like a
it's very
demo.
exciting. Yeah, well, no, they give like the basically the whole thing free. It's not
Oh
as
wow!
yeah, they're refining it, but it's free. Like you can do it's everything that the other e-sources have. There's no
Wow. Okay,
yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah, that's I'll be announcing something soon with them because I'm that's one of the companies that I really think like Viva, and I've been saying this for a while, but Viva is one of those companies if you look at the stock price and so $27 billion
Mm,
market cap. I mean, they're the size market cap wise of like a CRO, like one of the big CROs.
wow.
And it's pure tech. Like everything is
hmm
tech. And for the last decade, they've been on the sponsor side. They're a household name for every sponsor, especially when it comes to SUSAR, serious
hmm
unexpected.
Serious
What
events.
is that? Oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting. Suspected unexpected
Serious,
serious
unexpected.
adverse reaction. They're like a household name. They dominate that market for decades. But now, and we're getting into ePros, but now they're getting into the sites, eSource, eReg.
Mm,
So once we digitize data in our industry, I think it's going to make it easier to, or more efficient to actually
mm,
collect the data, analyze the data, process it, and really for
wow.
AI to analyze it.
Until the robots take over.
Till the robots take it. I mean, that's the
Until
natural
Skynet.
extension, right? I think we're at least 50 years away from that
Yeah.
because if you think about just what you do, right, on a daily basis, like as a CRC2, I mean, that's like not even 10%. That's maybe 5% of the what a site has to do for a
hmm
study. So, and what you do cannot be automated by AI or
No.
algorithms. Not yet. Not yet. See, they would have to have somebody AI would have to be as smart as you to be able to anticipate questions,
hmm To
answer
adapt
according to
to a human.
IRB,
hmm
adapt to a human, and on top of that, have it IRB approved. I don't think in our lifetime, even the 5% of
Yeah,
what
no.
you do can be outsourced. So the people that are afraid of the AIs, that's definitely coming. But it's
Yes.
so much further than we think. But that is you're right, that is the next step is
hmm
digitizing, get everything digitized. It is one step closer. And
hmm
little piece by pieces will eventually start getting automated. But I think roles will then change. Like somebody,
Oh yeah.
you're gonna have a new job to do at that point. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Nobody knows.
That's a crazy industry to be a part of, man. And you got in at the right time. I think we're entering a golden era of
Wow.
research.
Hmm. I thought, yeah. Wow.
So, what are your like career ambitions? Long term. Like,
Mhm.
where do you see yourself? Are you still experimenting with where you fit in, or do you have like a plan for your career trajectory?
Mhm. Yeah. As many who find out about research, one of your goals, let's say, is to become a CRA, right? Because that's like the poster child for clinical research.
Yeah.
And I I mean, right now I wouldn't like to travel as much, but that's just me, right? So I'm not only looking or specifically looking for a CRA position. I'm looking for something remote and more into the project management uh, of of research. That I think that would be my main midterm goal. And yeah, uh, from being a CTA to a CRC, um, I want something more speedier. Again, more project management. My experience managing the company taught me really a lot about myself. That I always want to pursue the next big thing. Like manage people, manage the timelines, calendars. Like I am someone who likes the chaos
Hmm.
of managing things, and yeah, I love organization and automatizing all the tasks that can be automatized. So yeah, that's my midterm goal.
Well, you're in the right place, you're in the right industry, and you're probably at the right company to do it internally. But there's certainly
Hmm.
many, many companies outside as well in this space, and there's a lot of people on LinkedIn and a lot of people that I try to bring
Yeah,
onto these podcasts. So it's a important, I think, for all of us to network in this space.
yeah.
Like,
I
it's easy to network with your colleagues, but like in your own company, but outside it's probably even more valuable.
mhm. I just had a talk with Ashley Margot. We were going through my CV, and just based on the recommendations, like I went through to the CRA Academy classes, and I
Oh, did
went
she do
specifically to
the
her.
she did the
Hmm.
internship, the CRA Academy internship
Hmm.
class today, right?
I will. I don't know. I went back to the
Oh,
ones
you
I
did
had
the one
from
on
the
one.
CRA.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And ever since I adjusted my CV based on her recommendations, I've been getting lots of recruiters reaching out. So, hey, you might be interested in having a 30-minute conversation. I
Wow.
might have something for you. And at least on average, at least I get 4 of those messages per week.
Wow.
So just the power of like actually working on your CV and putting it on LinkedIn, it really made a difference.
Wow. So you changed your CV and
Hmm. Because
you
my
reflected that
CV
on LinkedIn.
before, my CV was 7 pages long, maybe 8, and now it's set up 4. But actually suggested that I might cut it a little. But yeah, that, that was it.
Ashley's like a resume CV genius. This
Yeah,
this
sure is.
girl has a mastered at her young age, like master. I can't imagine when she's like 40.
Yeah.
I mean, 10
Hmm.
more years or however old she is, like I just can't imagine how much better she's gonna get. Because this girl, she works for the CRA and CRC Academy students, so they'll do your resume for free. She teaches our internship classes now every month, 2 a month. We improved our product since you left. Now Ashley teaches 2 classes to the interns every month. So not only you're done with the
Wow.
3-month class, But now for the rest of your life, as long as you want, you'll have 2 classes every month by Ashley in there as well. It's crazy.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really big improvement.
Jeez. Okay. Well, Daniel, is there anything else that we didn't touch on? Um,
Um,
I'm kind of glad we did this interview because I feel it's better than our first one.
yeah, me too.
What,
I mean,
anything we didn't touch on?
on the first one, we touched a little bit more about the immigration process. I mean, if you are on the fiancé visa, you can either get a lawyer or do it yourself. Of course, doing it yourself, it's a lot of headache. It's binders after binders of just paperwork. We did ourselves. CRA Academy, organization skills. Um, but after that, we really needed the help of a lawyer because there's some very specific lingo and some very specific know-how that they do possess. I'm not saying that's what I got the visa, but it is highly recommended just for you for your uh, to keep your mind safe. You know that
Mhm.
everything is done correctly.
Yeah. No, that's super important. Latinos in Clunger Research just had a webinar. We had an immigration attorney. It was an hour,
Mm,
just
yeah,
immigration attorney. By the way, everybody join latinosclungerresearch.com no matter your background. I'm a Caucasian male and I'm a member, so anybody can join.
I got
Um,
some translation articles there.
yeah, and you've actually helped a lot. What Monica said with the CRC Academy, like materials. So thank you,
Yep,
Daniel. That was what you
of
were doing
course.
in between jobs. And I'm curious, did all that stuff, did you find a way to put all those tasks that you did on your resume to help you get your first job?
Yes. I wrote about the translation project and the book project.
Wow. See, everything helps. It's just a matter of
Hmm.
demonstrating that to a potential employer because I have so many people watching and listening that say, "Hey, I've done this, this, this. I know how to do this." And then I look at their CV and I can't tell. It's not clear to me any of that stuff.
Yep, exactly. Even if sometimes you think it won't help, but if you had, I don't know, a course in opioid use disorder, or you were a volunteer in a hospital or a clinic or an elderly house, and the research is about or will lead to those kind of backgrounds, it could help. Uh, I mean, I hate to be cliche, but Steve Jobs said, like, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can connect it looking back. All your experiences, all your knowledge that you've been acquiring over the years will finally make sense when you connect them, like all of that
Hmm.
looking back. So, yeah, I mean, again, my experience has been broad. I've worked for fertilization clinics. I've worked, of course, as a waiter. I've worked on as a scientific advisor, a COO. I worked on avocado research. Yeah, they wanted to find out the right temperature for to ship them from one country to another. So that was interesting.
Wow.
What did I not do? That's the right question. Both
That's the right
inside
question.
professional and out like leisure. I've done many things,
That's
but yeah,
awesome.
like clinical research. That's the place to be.
So if anybody wants to connect with Daniel, right, we're gonna send them to your LinkedIn. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Daniel Torres. The link will be underneath this video and in the show notes. I'm looking at his LinkedIn right now, and yeah, I could see Ashley Mar. It shows me immediately Ashley Margot and Monica as your connection. So there you guys go. Connect with Daniel. Everybody, feel free to reach out. Obviously, he knows so much. Like we could have done 3 hours, and we'll probably do follow ups. I really want to do the next one. You and Samantha together.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, of
And
course.
you guys are engaged, or have you tied the
We
knot?
We actually celebrated our first year marriage on last Friday.
Marriage.
Yes,
Wow. So you guys got married in
Se-
2021, September.
September 16th.
Wow. Congrats. Because I was going to ask,
Yeah.
when's the wedding, man? What's going on?
We
Okay.
had a very small wedding. It was still COVID time, so
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
we couldn't have family fly over and that, so we had
Well,
to just
now
do it
that you
small.
made it official, and good, very good choice, by the way, with Samantha. Um, we got to do the group, the husband and wife, happy happy marriage, happy researchers. I think that's
Hmm.
well, I don't think we've
Yep.
done that before, so definitely have to do that. So shout out to you and Samantha. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, listening. Like I said, go connect with Daniel. His LinkedIn is underneath. This guy is gonna definitely go places in this industry, and I've been really lucky to get both you and Samantha to help me out with my startup, Yuma Clinical Trials, and now it's not so much a startup anymore. It's becoming
Yeah, that's great,
mature,
man.
more mature.
Of
So
course,
thank you, Daniel.
I might invest.
We won't get to that point, I
Come
think
on.
that's um yeah, there's definitely some opportunities though in the at the site, the small local site
Cool.
space that we could probably discuss too on another podcast. But thank you so much, Daniel. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
And Guru Nation appreciates it too. Everybody go connect, like, subscribe, comment, share.